It started with the incense. That was the first sign. Not the late nights, not the distant eyes, not the new passcode on her phone. It was the scent of sandalwood and patchouli clinging to the curtains like a warning. Subtle, haunting. She never used incense before. Laura was a scented candle woman. Vanilla bean, ocean mist, basic stuff. But then this new smell slithered into our house like a ghost that refused to leave. She called it energy cleansing, said it helped her focus during yoga. She'd been going 3 times a week, then 5. Eventually, every day. Always at the same studio, some boutique place with mood lighting and overpriced kombucha. I never minded at first. Hell, I encouraged it. Marriage has gravity, you know? Life pulls at you, bills, dishes, that endless ache of routine. So when she found something that made her light up again, I figured, good, let her have that. I didn't know it would consume her. She came home one night talking about her instructor like he was some kind of prophet. Ravi says we carry trauma in our hips, she told me, swirling her wine, eyes glazed. That's why pigeon pose is so important. You have to open the chakras to release the past. I didn't say anything. I was watching a game, half listening. But I remember that line. Open the chakras. It sounded like nonsense then. A phrase from a cult pamphlet or a stoner's Tumblr blog. But now, I hear in my sleep. Ravi was always in her mouth after that. Ravi says this. Ravi showed us that. Ravi thinks monogamy is a social construct. She dropped that one over dinner between bites of salmon-eyed pan-seared to perfection. I laughed, thought she was joking. She wasn't. Maybe you should meet him, she said one night. You're so tense lately. I was tense. My gut knew something my brain wasn't ready to admit. Her phone habits changed. Always face down. Notifications silenced. And when I caught a glimpse of one message, just one, a preview on a lock screen, it said, "You opened beautifully today." I'm still buzzing. No name, just a number. But I didn't need one. The next morning I told her I wanted to join her for a class. Watch her open the chakras in real time. She got quiet, said it was an advanced session, not for beginners. It's not a spectator thing, Alex. That's when I knew. I followed her that Friday. She took her yoga mat, her reusable water bottle, wore that tight burgundy set she said made her feel empowered. Drove like everything was fine. I tailed her from 3 cars back. She didn't go to the studio. She didn't even go in that direction. She pulled into a condo complex downtown, swiped a key fob, went in through the side entrance like she'd done it 1,000 times. I sat in my car with the engine running, staring at the door like it might open and offer an explanation. It didn't. She stayed 2 hours. Came out glowing. Floaty. The same look she used to have after sex. She didn't see me. That night, I said nothing. She was all over me, touchy, affectionate, like she was high on something. I let her put her arms around me, kiss my neck, breathe that goddamn incense in my face. You smell like patchouli, I said flatly. She laughed. That's Ravi's blend. Isn't it grounding? I didn't answer. But that night, I waited until she fell asleep. Slipped her phone from under her pillow. She'd changed the passcode. 6 digits now, not 4. But I figured it out. It was our anniversary, backwards. Like some kind of inside joke. There were photos, videos, messages that read like bad erotic poetry. She wasn't just cheating. She was worshiping him, calling him her spiritual guide, her chakra twin, her awakener. They weren't just sleeping together. He was teaching her to leave me. That's what broke me. Not the sex. Not even the lies. It was the realization that he'd replaced me, not just as her lover, but as her truth. She didn't need me anymore. She had Ravi. And Ravi had her heart, her body, and, if I didn't stop it soon, everything else. The next day, I signed up for a class. It was easy. Her studio had a clean, overpriced website with Ravi's face plastered on the homepage. Shirtless, of course. Eyes closed, palms up, chin tilted toward the sky like he was downloading wisdom from a higher plane. Underneath, a quote in cursive font. The body is the portal. The soul is the journey. I signed up under a fake name, Caleb. Used a burner email. Paid cash at the desk. The receptionist was a waif in yoga pants and a tank top that read "Stay Aligned." She gave me a mat and told me Ravi's Chakra Awakening workshop was already full, but since I was new and there'd been a cancellation, I could slide in. Lucky me. The The studio was all glass and bamboo and soft lighting. Smelled like eucalyptus and self-deception. Everyone looked the same, toned, glowy, painfully serene. I stuck out like a sore middle finger. Then he walked in. Ravi. He was younger than I expected. Maybe 35. Long hair pulled into a knot, tan like he'd been sunbathing on a cliff somewhere. Shirtless again, wearing linen pants that looked like they'd disintegrate in a strong breeze. He had that smile, the kind that's more performance than emotion, like a politician or a cult leader. "Welcome, seekers," he said. His voice was low, breathy, like he was seducing the air itself. Laura was there, second row, dead center. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy gazing up at him like he was some kind of cosmic drug, and she was already high. When she did see me, her expression flickered. Just for a second, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Then nothing. She closed herself off like a vault, turned her attention back to him, and never looked my way again. That was when I knew she wasn't coming back. Ravi took us through a sequence he called the sacred spiral. Said it was designed to unlock our primal energy. He guided us into poses, whispering affirmations like a lover. Your body remembers what your mind forgot. Let go of guilt. Let go of shame. Feel the heat rise. That's not fear. That's freedom. He touched them all. Hands on shoulders, hips, thighs. And they welcomed it. Moaned through it, even. I watched him place a hand at the base of Laura's spine and press her into a deep back bend. She exhaled like he just reached into her and lit something on fire. My hands were clenched so tight around the edges of my mat, I didn't notice the blood at first. Afterward, he invited the class to stay for tea and integration. I did. I had to. They gathered in a circle on plush cushions. He passed around tiny ceramic cups. The tea smelled like herbs and decay. When it was Laura's turn, she took her cup and looked at him like he held the answer to every question she didn't know how to ask. "Anything you'd like to release today?" he asked her softly. She paused, then nodded. "My attachments." He smiled like a priest granting absolution. "Good," he said. "They were never real anyway." She looked right at me as she said it. The room didn't notice. They were all too deep in their spiritual bliss. But I saw the corners of her mouth twitch, a flicker of satisfaction, like she was daring me to lose it. I didn't. I sat through the whole thing, sipping my bitter tea, nodding like I understood. But inside, I was already planning. Because here's the thing about men like Ravi. They think they're untouchable. They bathe in worship and mistake it for armor. But underneath the robes and the rituals, they're just flesh and ego. All it takes is the right pressure point. A single crack, and everything collapses. I left the studio that day with a smile. Because now I knew his face, his voice, his rhythm. And just like he'd opened her chakras, I was going to open something too. Not a body, a life. And tear it wide apart that I waited 3 days before going back. That was the trick. You don't stalk. You observe. You wait. You let them get comfortable again, lower the drawbridge. Laura hadn't said a word about seeing me at the studio. Not a single syllable. Not even a passive-aggressive jab. I think she wanted me to ask. Maybe she wanted the confrontation, wanted to play the victim when it came. "Why were you there?" she'd say, hand on heart like a soap opera extra. "You were spying on me." But I didn't give her that. I just let her come home and go through the motions, let her pretend the marriage still existed in name. She was doing laundry now, humming, folding my shirts like she still had a right to touch them. The audacity. I watched her from a hallway, my eyes locked on her hands, wondering how many times they'd touched him, wondering if she ever folded his clothes after. Probably not. Ravi doesn't strike me as the folding type. I went back to the studio Friday at dusk. The air was thick with coming rain, the sky low and brooding like it knew what I was planning. I didn't go inside this time. I waited across the street in my car, engine off, lights out. Watched through the windshield as the glass front studio flickered with soft amber light. Shadowy figures moved through sun salutations, their bodies long and elastic like they'd been poured from a bottle. And then I saw him, Ravi, standing like a statue at the front of the room, arms raised, eyes closed, his whole body bathed in a holy glow. It made me sick. He wore that same serene smirk, the one that says I know something you don't. But I knew plenty. I knew what kind of man he really was. Not a healer, not a guide, just another predator with good posture and a god complex. When the class ended, I watched the students trickle out, smiling, loose, blissed out. One by one, they climbed into their cars, drove off into the quiet hum of suburbia. Then she came out, Laura, hair damp with sweat, face glowing. She didn't leave right away. Instead, she walked to the side of the building, pulled out her phone, and started typing. Probably texting him. Probably arranging the next private session. I watched her fingers move like they were writing secrets I'd never see. Then Ravi emerged behind her. No shirt, just a towel, slung low around his waist like a scene from a fantasy novel. He walked up to her and kissed her like he owned her. No hesitation, no shame. She leaned into it like muscle memory. And that was the moment. Not the kiss, not the lies, not even the betrayal. It was the way she smiled after. The way she looked at him like he was home. That was when something inside me shifted. Something quiet and cold. A door locked behind my ribs. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt strategy. I drove away slow, fingers tapping the wheel, mind already spinning. I didn't want to just confront them. That's what amateurs do. I wanted them to rot, to feel the walls close in, to choke on the incense smoke they lit in my name. So I started digging. Ravi had a digital footprint the size of a crater. Blogs, podcasts, a YouTube channel called The Sacred Pulse, where he whispered pseudo-philosophy into a microphone over the sound of whale songs. I watched hours of it, not because I needed the content. I needed the rhythm, the way he talked, the cadence, the pauses he thought made him sound wise. It was a performance, and I was learning the script. Then I found the testimonials, hundreds of them, some vague, some disturbing. One in particular stuck with me. I told him I didn't want to be touched, but he said my energy was blocked, and if I didn't let him open my sacral chakra, I'd never heal. He said trust was part of the journey. That was on a forum. Buried. Never followed up on. No name. No photos. But I screenshotted it. Printed it. Highlighted every word. This wasn't just cheating anymore. This was something bigger. Something systemic. Ravi wasn't just taking wives. He was collecting them. Turning broken women into disciples. Maybe not all sexual. Maybe some just spiritual. But they were his. And he made sure they knew it. I found out his legal name wasn't Ravi. It was Todd Benjamin Reiser. Born in Idaho. Got kicked out of yoga retreat in Bali for boundary violations. Moved back stateside and rebranded himself. That was the angle. I called an old friend. Ex-cop turned PI. He owed me a favor. I gave him the name. Told him to dig deep. He said he'd call me back in 72 hours. I said I'd wait. I didn't tell Laura any of this. I kissed her on the forehead that night. Asked about her day. She said it was fine. Said the studio was deeply transformative lately. I smiled. Said I was happy for her. She smiled back. Her eyes so full of light. And I wondered, for just a second, if she knew. If somewhere deep down she wanted to get caught. Wanted me to pull her out of the spell. But I wasn't going to save her. I was going to dismantle him. One fake mantra at a time. He texted her the next morning. I was in the kitchen when it came through. Her phone lit up on the counter while she was upstairs showering. She'd gotten careless. Or maybe she just believed I'd stopped looking. I hadn't. Still feeling your fire from last night. The way you opened your root chakra? Goddess tear. Meet again before class. I stared at the screen, the words searing into me like acid. Root chakra. Of course. The one tied to survival, to instinct, to sex. Always sex. Everything in this fake spiritual world boiled down to the same thing. Desire disguised as enlightenment. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't need to. I'd memorized his number the first time I saw it. Burned it into the back of my eyes. 786-555 for 192. He didn't even try to hide. That was his arrogance. And arrogance always leaves tracks. I pulled out my own phone and opened a new note. Created a digital profile. Logged everything. Dates. Times. Language patterns. The way he flattered her. The way he framed control as empowerment. Let me guide you. Let me show you. Let me open you. Parasite. I watch her come downstairs in that flowy linen top she always wore after her sessions, like she was halfway between a human and a cloud. She kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her keys, said she had errands. I nodded, said nothing. She left, and I followed. This time I stayed close. No more playing ghost. I wanted him to feel it, that breath on the back of his neck, that primal twitch that says you're being watched. She drove straight to his condo. Second time this week. She parked around the back. Same space, same routine. No hesitation, no guilt. I watched from across the street as she keyed herself in, like she lived there, like she belonged. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Then the lights dimmed. Curtains closed. That was the signal. I stepped out of my car and walked. Calm, casual, hoodie up, head down. Just another face in the city. I wasn't armed. Not yet. I wasn't stupid, but I wanted to see him. Up close. I wanted to know what kind of man thought he could rewrite my story with scented oils and breath work. I reached the building's entrance, pressed my ear to the call box, heard faint music, drums, chanting, and then her voice. Soft, giggling. My stomach turned, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started recording. Audio only. Proof. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but it felt necessary. Felt like insurance. Then I walked away. Back to the car. Back to silence. That night, she came home flushed and glowing. Said she got a massage. Deep tissue, she added with a wink. I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded, handed her a glass of wine, and asked if she wanted to watch something. She said no. Said she was tired. Said her energy was being recalibrated. I watched her drift off to sleep beside me on the couch, legs tucked under a blanket, phone resting on her stomach like a loaded weapon. I reached for it again, slower this time. The password hadn't changed. Inside, it was all there. Their thread was a novel now, full of affirmations, photos, voice notes. But one message caught my eye, sent from Ravi 3 nights ago. I told my landlord I'm subletting. The space is ours now. Just say the word. Ours. That meant permanence. That meant escape. That meant he was planning to take her from me completely. And she hadn't said no. Hadn't said anything. Just sent a heart emoji and let's see how the universe flows. She used to talk like a person. Now she spoke like a fortune cookie. I set the phone back. Got up. Went to the garage. That's where I kept the lockbox. Inside it, documents, backup drives, passwords. I added the audio file to one of the drives. Started a new folder. Labeled it Exposure. My plan wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about precision. About leverage. Because Ravi wasn't just seducing wives. He was leaving a trail of manipulated bodies in his wake. And if I could trace it far enough, build a case dense enough, I could take everything from him. His studio, his persona, his following, his name, strip him bare until there was nothing left but Todd from Idaho and a trail of broken vows. I thought about going to the cops. Briefly, but this wasn't their kind of justice. This was mine. Personal. Surgical. If I did it right, he wouldn't even know it was me until it was over. Until the bank accounts dried up. Until the lease was voided. Until the allegations started spreading like wildfire through his community of seekers. One crack in a mask, that's all it takes. Just one exposed pressure point. I had the voice recordings. I had the texts. But I needed one more thing. One more piece to set the trap. I needed someone else he'd broken. Someone who'd talk. Someone who'd lost more than I had. Someone with nothing left to protect. And I had an idea where to find her. Her name was Marissa. I found her buried in the comments of one of Ravi's old blog posts. A long-winded piece about divine masculine energy and the necessity of surrender. Most of the replies were praise, copy-paste worship for followers who sounded like they were trying to seduce him with words. But hers stood out. No profile picture. No flowery language. Just, you don't open people, Ravi. You fracture them. You broke me. That was 4 months ago. I traced her IP address through the website's backend. Easier than it should have been, honestly. The studio site was held together with duct tape and bad coding. She was local, still in the city. Her social media was locked down tight, but not airtight. One mutual connection, an old college roommate who hadn't pruned their friends list. I followed that breadcrumb until I found her real page. She hadn't posted in over a year. Her profile photo was just a landscape, trees, fog, maybe a river. But her story wasn't hard to piece together. Yoga instructor. Former. Bio now said healing in progress. I messaged her. Careful, measured, not as a husband, as another fracture in Ravi's porcelain cult. I didn't mention Laura. Not yet. I just said, he did it to my wife too. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to hear your story. I expected silence. Or worse, a warning. But she responded the next night. One line. Meet me where it ended. I didn't ask for clarification. Didn't need to. I knew she meant the studio. His studio. Ground zero. She was already there when I arrived. Hood up, sitting on the curb near the dumpster, cigarette burning low between her fingers. Her eyes were sharp, not broken, tempered, like metal that had been through hell and come out colder. You're him, she said. The husband. I nodded, and knew the warning no one listened to. She smirked. No joy in it. They never do. Not until it's their home burning. She didn't waste time. Just started talking. Said she met Ravi 2 years ago. Said he was charming in the way snakes are, smooth, slow, hypnotic. He told her she was special, that her aura was blocked, that he could fix it. Said the same thing to everyone. Only his fix always required undressing, touching, breathing into places that had nothing to do with yoga. He called it energy transference, she said. I called it grooming. Took me a while to see the difference. She told me he isolated her, pulled her away from friends, from students who questioned him. Said they were toxic. Said skepticism was fear in disguise. He was always right, always enlightened, until she finally snapped, caught him with another student, another goddess. She called him out publicly during a session. He banned her from the studio, spread rumors, said she had a breakdown, said she needed healing. I almost believed him, she said, flicking the ash. That's how good he is. He gets in your head and rearranges the furniture. I showed her the texts, the audio, watched her eyes darken. He hasn't changed, she said. He's just gotten better at hiding it. I told her what I was planning. Not everything, just enough. She didn't hesitate. I'm in, she said. You want a witness? A statement? You got it. Hell, I'll dig up others. There's a whole trail of us. He leaves broken women like breadcrumbs. We've just never talked. Maybe it's time we did. I gave her my number, told her to be careful. He plays dirty, I said. So do I, she replied. And I believed her. I drove home through empty streets, the city humming low with secrets. Laura was already asleep when I got in, draped across the bed like a fallen angel, hair tangled, back bare. I watched her breathe for a moment, wondered if she even remembered the woman she used to be. The one who used to call me during lunch just to say she missed my voice. The one who used to cry during movies because she felt too much. That woman was gone, replaced by this ethereal version of herself. Lit by candles, guided by mantras, unreachable, but not invincible. I wasn't going to save her. That wasn't my role anymore. I was the reckoning, and the walls were closing in. Ravi didn't know it yet, but his studio, the sacred sanctuary he'd built on silence and submission, was about to become the stage for his fall. I had the evidence, the ally, the pattern. All I needed was one final push, one move that would snap the mask in two. So I started planning the event. Not a raid, not a confrontation, a revelation, a public one, the kind that leaves scars, the kind that stains reputations beyond repair, the kind that doesn't just expose a man, it dissolves him. I called it an evening of awakening, and I made sure he'd be there, centered, radiant, ready to perform. And completely unaware he was stepping into his own funeral, he said yes without hesitation. That was the beauty of ego. It made him reckless. I sent the invite through a fake account posing as an event coordinator for a wellness collective. Called it a sacred gathering for conscious men, hosted in a private loft downtown. Promised exposure, potential clients, a panel slot. Even dangled the idea of a documentary tie-in. He replied within hours. Sounds aligned. I'd be honored to share my light. Share his light. I laughed when I read it. The only thing he shared was infection. A spiritual parasite selling enlightenment by the ounce. I booked the space through an old contact in event planning. A minimalist loft with white brick walls and industrial lighting. Clean, open, theatrical. I made sure there'd be a projector, sound system, and seating for 20. No more. Intimate. I wanted him to feel the eyes. I sent private invitations to a curated list, students from his studio, local wellness influencers, women he'd mentored, and, quietly, a few others like Marissa. Former students who had agreed to show. Not to speak. Not yet. Just to witness. To be in the room when the lie burst open like a lung full of water. Laura wanted to come the moment she heard about it. She found the event on a flyer I planted on our fridge. Of course she did. She lit up like someone had just handed her a backstage pass to divinity. "Robbie speaking at this?" she asked, eyes wide. "He didn't mention it to me." I shrugged. Must have slipped his mind. She didn't even question it. Just nodded, bit her lip, and said she'd wear white. To stay energetically neutral, she added. Whatever that meant. The night of the event, I dressed simple. Black button-up. Jeans. Neutral. Forgettable. The space filled quickly. Soft ambient music played overhead. Chimes and deep breathing. People filed in, hugging, complimenting each other's frequency. It was a cult without the label. And then he arrived. Ravi. In all his glory. Barefoot, of course. Linen pants. No shirt. A long gray shawl wrapped around his shoulders like a ceremonial flag. Laura was already seated when he walked in. Their eyes locked. They didn't kiss. Not here. Not with the crowd. But their connection pulsed like static. She looked like she was seeing God. He looked like he was about to perform surgery. "Thank you for this sacred space," he said to no one and everyone. "Let's begin." The opening was typical. Breath work. A guided visualization. He spoke in waves, drawing the audience into that trance state where skepticism melts and suggestion sinks deep. He talked about healing, about truth, about shedding illusions. That was the cue. I stepped forward, quietly, clicked the remote in my pocket. The projector behind him sparked to life. At first, the crowd thought it was part of the ceremony. Ravi even played along. "Ah," he said, turning to face the screen. Visual manifestation, then the audio started. One of his voice notes to Laura. "The way you opened for me, it was beyond spiritual. Your mind now. No more hiding. The others don't matter." The room froze. Ravi's face drained. He turned back to me, mouth open, lips forming something like a protest. But I wasn't done. I clicked again. Photos. Screenshots. Messages. Each one uglier than the last. More recordings followed. That testimonial from the forum. A statement from Marissa, her voice steady and cold. He told me I was broken, that I needed his hands to fix me. I said no. He said resistance was part of the journey. Gasps. Whispers. Someone stood up and walked out. Then another. And another. Laura was frozen. Pale. Her jaw slack. Eyes flicking between me and him like she couldn't decide who the stranger was. Ravi finally spoke. This is a violation of sacred space. So were you," I said. My voice was calm, measured. I stepped aside and let the screen keep rolling. Every secret, every manipulation, lay bare under the soft light. He tried to walk. One of the former students stood and blocked him. "You don't get to leave," she said. "Not this time." He sat down. Not gracefully. He collapsed into the nearest chair like the air had been stolen from his lungs. The performance was over. The mask was off, and what remained was just a man. Small, cornered, and very, very afraid. When the last slide faded, silence took the room. No applause. No outrage. Just that heavy, stunned hush that follows a sacred truth no one wanted to hear. Then someone clapped. Just once. Then again. A slow, deliberate rhythm. "Marissa." She stood, looked him dead in the eye. "You thought none of us would talk. You were wrong." And she walked out. One by one, the others followed. Ravi didn't move. He just sat there, trembling. Laura didn't look at me. She couldn't. I didn't expect her to. I didn't need her to. This wasn't for her. This was mine. And as I stepped outside into the cool night air, I didn't feel relief. I felt clarity. He was done. But the fallout was just beginning. By morning, his name was a ruin. The video went viral overnight. Someone in the audience had filmed the whole thing. Every word, every image, every silence. It hit Reddit first, then TikTok, then Instagram. The algorithm did the rest. Guru exposed. Chakra charlatan. The cult of consent. Hashtags piled up like bodies. The yoga community split like a cracked mirror. Some rushed to defend him. said it was character assassination, called it a spiritual smear campaign. But most saw through it. The receipts were too sharp, too many, too detailed. His voice didn't lie. His text didn't lie. His women didn't lie. The studio shut down within 48 hours. Lease terminated. Socials wiped clean. His website redirected to a blank white page with a single line of text. This domain has expired. Fitting. Laura didn't say a word to me that first day. She just sat in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone like she was watching herself drown in real time. Maybe she was. I didn't speak either. I poured my coffee, sat across from her, and waited. Eventually she looked up. Her eyes were hollow. "You did this," she said. I nodded. "Yeah. You humiliated him. I exposed him." She looked away, jaw clenched. Not from anger. From shame. But she wasn't ready to say it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That night, she didn't sleep in our bed. She took the couch. Didn't even take a blanket. Just curled up in that tight fetal position, like the truth had physically shrunk her. I left her there. She wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never had been. What she thought was awakening was just another form of anesthesia, and Ravi had dosed her so deep she mistook dependency for freedom. But the drug was gone now. The high had turned, and withdrawal was always ugly. By the end of the week, the lawsuit started. Quietly at first, one from a former student claiming emotional coercion, another alleging unwanted touch during adjustments. Marissa told me 5 more were ready to file. She was organizing them, creating a network, a reckoning. I gave her everything I had, every clip, every message, every file I hadn't already burned into the internet. She said, "Thank you." I said, "Don't thank me. Just finish it." Laura started packing a few days later. Said she needed time, space. Said she couldn't be here while I looked at her like that. I didn't ask what that meant. I let her believe this was still her story to narrate. Let her fold her shame into vague spirituality. She still lit incense, still whispered affirmations under her breath, like she could smudge away the stench of betrayal. I didn't stop her. You don't take the crutch from someone who just realized they can't walk. She left without fanfare. Just a suitcase, a duffel, and the echo of her absence. No goodbye. Just a note on the table. "I'm sorry. I don't know who I am anymore." I read it once, then set it on fire in the sink. Watched the ink twist and blacken, the edges curl like dying leaves. I didn't feel grief. I felt gravity, like I'd been weightless for months and finally hit the earth again. I cleaned the house that night, top to bottom, stripped the bed, washed every dish, opened every window, let the smoke out, let the silence in. I found her yoga mat in the corner of the room, still rolled tight. I didn't throw it away. I left it there. A relic, a warning, a reminder. The next morning, I went for a run. First time in weeks. Air was crisp, sharp, honest. I didn't bring music. Just let my breath and heartbeat guide me. Somewhere around mile 3, I realized I wasn't thinking about her. Not once. My mind was quiet. No mantras. No strategies. No rage. Just motion. Just now. Ravi disappeared. No one's seen him. Last I heard, his car was abandoned at a rest stop 2 states over. Passport flagged. Accounts frozen. I doubt he'll resurface anytime soon. The internet has teeth, and memory, and zero forgiveness for false prophets. I never told my parents. Never told my friends. What would I say? My wife left me for a yoga instructor who turned out to be a predatory sociopath, and I took him down using his own sermons against him. Doesn't fit on a Christmas card. So I kept it, all of it, locked tight in that internal vault where we bury the worst parts of ourselves. The places we only visit when we need to remind ourselves what we survived, and how far we're willing to go when survival turns to vengeance. I thought revenge would feel like victory, but it didn't. It felt like silence, like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing the storm passed, and you're still here. Not proud, not triumphant, just here. And maybe that's enough. 3 months later, she came back. Not with a suitcase, not with tears, not with apologies rehearsed in the mirror. She just appeared one morning, standing in the driveway like someone waiting for a bus that never came. I saw her through the window while pouring coffee. Thought for a second it was a ghost. She looked smaller, not thinner, just hollowed, like someone had carved out the center and left the shell upright. I didn't go out to meet her. I didn't unlock the door. I just sat at the kitchen table and waited to see what she'd do. She didn't knock. She didn't move. She just stood there, staring at the front of the house like it had become a stranger in her absence. When she finally stepped forward, I could hear her feet on the porch, could feel the weight of her hesitation through the door. Then a knock. 3 soft taps. I opened it. No words, just air between us. She opened her mouth like she was going to speak, but nothing came out. I tilted my head. You left. She nodded. I know. You lied. Another nod. I know. You burned everything. Her lips trembled, but she didn't cry. I didn't know what I was doing. You knew enough to hide it. Silence again. Heavy. She looked past me, into the house, like she expected to see pieces of her old life still floating in the air. But they weren't. I'd scrubbed every trace of her from this place. The incense, the silk scarves, the yoga mat, all gone. Donated, trashed, burned. She stepped forward. I didn't move. Her hand brushed the doorframe like it still belonged to her. I thought I was finding myself, she said finally. And instead, I lost everything that mattered. I let the words hang there. Let her hear how pathetic they sounded in the space where truth used to live. I was sick, she added, voice breaking now. He made me feel seen. Like I mattered. He saw your weakness. That's not the same. She didn't argue. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she was too tired. Or maybe, finally, she understood. What do you want, Laura? I asked. Not gently. Not cruelly. Just flat. Direct. Surgical. She looked up at me, and for the first time in over a year, I saw her. Not the version he built. Not the goddess in training. Just her. Scared. Small. Human. I don't know, she whispered. Then figured out somewhere else. I started to close the door. Her hand shot out, stopping it. Not forcefully. Just enough. Do you hate me? She asked. I didn't answer. I didn't know her that. Hate is too loud. Too passionate. What I felt was colder. Like frost on glass. Like forgetting someone while they're still speaking. I closed the door. Slowly. Cleanly. And that was it. She didn't knock again. I watched from the window as she stood there a moment longer, shoulders shaking like maybe she'd finally let the guilt catch up. Then she walked away. No drama. No final words. Just the sound of footsteps fading into nothing. I sat back down. Finished my coffee. The house was quiet. Still. And for the first time since this all began, I felt something settle. Not peace. Not closure. But space. Enough room to breathe. I didn't chase her. I didn't watch to see where she went. Because this story wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. Robbie's name had become synonymous with scandal. Lawsuits were still pending. The internet had moved on, but his face lingered in the corners of podcasts and exposés. His last known post was a black screen with the words, "Even light cast shadows." Comments were disabled. I went back to the studio once. Just once. It was empty. For Lee's sign in the window. Dust on the mats. Someone had broken the mirror wall. Shards scattered across the floor like fallen stars. I stepped over them and stood in the center of the room. Closed my eyes. Inhaled. No incense. No music. Just silence. My breath. My body. And I dropped into a pose. Warrior. Not for irony. Not for memory. Just to feel what was still mine. My balance. My strength. My spine aligned. The irony didn't escape me. That the last thing she tried to give me was yoga. And in the end, I took it back. Purified it. Reclaimed it. Not for peace. Not for transcendence. Just to prove I could. I left the studio without looking back. Locked the door behind me. The sound echoed down the empty hallway like a punctuation mark. Final. Precise. Home wasn't far. Just a few blocks. The walk felt clean. Honest. No ghosts followed. No weight pressed down. And as I stepped through the front door, the air smelled like wood and coffee and nothing else. Nothing sacred. Nothing stolen. Just life. Just breath. And finally, stillness.